Thank you for joining us for our Ask the Candidate series. We really want you to have the information you need to make an informed vote on election day. I'm thrilled to have the Honourable Mark Coulton here with me today to answer some questions. He's our incumbent member for Parks and also representing the Nationals Party. Thanks for joining me, Mark.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you. And first question, can you describe your vision for the future of our electorate?
Yeah, sure. I believe at the moment we are probably in a recently, anyway, unprecedented time of optimism. And my vision, and I think the focus for the next 3 years, needs to be making sure that we can reach our full potential. There's so many moving parts, so much happening. At the moment, the biggest issue we have is lack of people. And my vision and focus is to get more people to come here, whether that is through migration, whether that's making sure that our young people have the tools and the support and the confidence they need to be able to step up from being a student to an adult and take up those opportunities, or helping with skilled migrants. So that's the biggest issue. There's right across my electorate, there are thousands of jobs and more to come. So, in lithium, cobalt, rare earth mining, as well as the ag sector is booming and there's a demand there, but right across every sector. So that's my vision.
Thank you. And next, what key housing issues does your policy specifically address?
Look, we've got a couple. Basically, we believe that to get people into their own homes is the best permanent way. Your house. I'm talking to a real estate agent, right? Your house is quite often the family's major asset, and so we've identified people that are hard to get into that market. So to help people get off that rental treadmill, we've got a first home owners buy for single parents. We've got a regional housing policy where we can help with the deposit or a lower deposit for homes for people coming into regional areas, so that during the pandemic we had the home builder scheme and other things as well. So there are various programs that we've got, but once again, we're going back to the first thing we talked about. We do have a skill shortage where there's a much more demand at the moment than we have skilled people to actually build the homes. And so, my first answer ties into the second one.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. And what professional experience and history qualifies you to hold a paid position of national influence?
Oh, well, I've lived in the Parks electorate all my life. Until I was 50, I operated my own business in the farming game and raised a family in a regional area, moderately successful in the ag game, bought and sold properties and ended up with quite a nice property that my wife and myself owned. She's been a teacher for 30 years, and so she brings that aspect into it. I was the mayor of a newly amalgamated Shire council that in its first year of operation won the Blewett Award for the most successful council in New South Wales. So I do have some background in community life. So I was a vice captain of the rural fire service. I was a president of the local show. I'm a life member of the local Apex Club. So my family have always been involved in community activities. But for the last 14 and a half years, I've been a member of the Australian Parliament. So the experience I brought there as a minister in the Australian government, I've had responsibilities for regional communications, regional health, local government, trade, and as well as administrative roles in the Parliament as Deputy Speaker and Party Whip. So I have had quite an experience. I'm actually the longest serving continuous member of the National Party in the House of Reps at the moment.
Is that right?
Mm.
Thank you so much for sharing. And what specific benchmarks will you use to determine that your time in office has been successful?
Well, Laura, it's interesting. I actually went back recently and read the first speech I made to Parliament, which was in February in 2008. In that speech, I identified the need for the inland rail. And indeed, one of the reasons I actually was motivated to go into federal Parliament was I understood the need for the inland rail as a generational change to our area. It'll bring my electorate not only with more effective contact with ports for export, but it actually connects us to every capital city in Australia by standard gauge rail. So the opportunity for value out of agriculture produce, the opportunity for recycling with the potential of a gas supply at Narrabri, fertiliser manufacture. So lots of opportunities to increase the productivity of the area. I identified that in my first speech. I talked about a better deal for local government. So when I was the minister, we had instigated the Local Roads Community Infrastructure Fund that's put millions of dollars through from the Commonwealth through local councils. But probably the one closest to my heart is I identified the need for health services, and I alluded to the fact that my mother passed away at a young age, and the indignity and the suffering that she suffered because she lived a long way from services while she was receiving that treatment. So if there's one thing that I'm proud of is that the Western Cancer Centre. And so I guess with regards to bench money, you can go back and see what I said that were my intentions to achieve and then match them up with what's actually happened. And I'm incredibly proud of that.
Thank you. And next, our electorate deserves to know how you'll show moral leadership. Can you describe how you'll approach a conscience vote by balancing the electorate's voice, your personal values, and your party's values?
That's a really an interesting question, Laura. I tend not to be someone that wants to preach morals from the hilltop. I have a set of standards at which I live. I'm very proud of the fact that I've been married to the same person for nearly 41 years. In another couple of weeks, it'll be 41 years. We've raised 3 kids, and they've been reared in a loving and caring home where they've been nurtured, and they now are all off, raising their own families. And so, but that's not something that I think, to a large degree, my good fortune should not be seen as a benchmark at which to judge up. Having said that, an example would be maybe the way that I manage the same-sex marriage debate. So my personal vote, it's not a secret, I actually did not vote for the legalisation of same-sex marriage. I didn't make a big fuss about that. But the majority of my electorate did. So when it came time for that to be endorsed in the Parliament, I actually voted in support of same-sex marriage because I wanted to reflect what the majority of my electorate thought. Now, did that make everyone in my electorate happy? No, but it is difficult, and I guess being a member of Parliament opens your eyes up to many different people who have very different views and lifestyle choices, and sometimes circumstances that are not choices. And so I think overall you need to have compassion and understanding of the different positions people take. But ultimately, for instance, if there's something that comes up on euthanasia, I have strong views on that. I actually believe it's in the basic instinct and drive and DNA of humans to actually fight for their last breath. And I think that if people are seeking to end their lives, it's actually a failure of palliative care. And I know that there's many people have a different view to that. But, if that time comes, I will be very strong in my personal opinion of that. So, but I get a little, people in glass houses should be very careful. So I'm very careful that I don't preach I don't preach morality to others, because largely it's decisions for others.
Thank you. And finally, a question for you as our incumbent member. What do you plan to do differently should you be re-elected?
Well, I think as you go through, quite often the issues you deal with aren't your choice. As a local member in such a diverse electorate like this, you end up dealing with what comes at you at the time. So, say in the last few years, we've been dealing with drought and the impacts that's had on on farmers and rural communities. We've been dealing with COVID, and I was actually the Minister for Regional Health at the start of the pandemic, and so I was involved a lot in setting up some vaccine supplies, personal protective equipment and things like that. And so that tends to become a focus of what happens. So, you always need to have a vision of where you want to go. But as a member of the federal parliament, you have to be prepared to deal with other issues. So like for instance, with the rollout of the NDIS, a lot of people that were transitioning onto the National Disability Service needed assistance to do that. So, I've been actively involved in that sort of thing. But if you want to know sort of my vision for where we need to be going over the next 3 years, I'll go back to where I started from. And my focus is going to be bringing more people into this area so that we take up all the issues, whether it's for health workers, legal professionals, trades, right through all the skills to largely unskilled people, and making sure that we can reach our full potential because we've got the people there. Now, there's going to be some challenges. Broken Hill alone will be looking at 5,000 to 10,000 more people to take up the opportunities there in that city alone in the next 5 to 10 years. Dubbo, it's enormous. The not only what we're dealing with now, but the projects coming. So it's not going to be an easy task, but that's going to be my focus.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for helping our viewers get to know you a little better in preparation for the election.
Thanks, Laura. It's always a pleasure chatting to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.